Let's turn that whole country vegan. Let's make Israel the first vegan country on this planet.
Hallelujah. Amen.
Yes, this COVID thing started in Wuhan, China, in a meat market. Absolutely, this was the fault of meat, dairy, and egg eaters all over this planet. I said, oh, tomatoes feel pain. And I said, so wait a second. So if there's a chicken drowning in some water and there's a tomato in the water next to the chicken, you jumping in to save the tomato? I'll even go further, though. I mean, the whole God argument is stupid. That anybody would think their God would condone killing baby animals, stealing babies from their mothers? There is no God at a slaughterhouse. It's a godless place, and of course it would have to be. How could a God be at this horrible place? That's the devil's realm. And the greatest trick the devil ever did was convince people to do things in God's name that God would never condone.
So we live, Gary. I just want to start with a little rap for you. Okay, I don't speak great in English, but I will try. So let's start. Before we dive in and set this chat on fire, a word of thanks, a note to inspire. For 3 decades strong, at Sasha Farm Gate, Gary's been helping animals change their fate. Feeding the hungry, freeing the chained, giving them love where cruelty reigned. And with speeches so sharp, with words that ignite, he turned countless of people toward compassion and light. So buckle up, friend, this is not just a show. By the end of this talk, your activism will grow. From Israel to the world, let's raise up the plan. Here's Gary Yourofsky, the voice, the man.
Oh man, that's awesome. Thank you so much. That was adorable. Thank you. Help Sasha Farm, everybody. SashaFarm.org.
If you want to explain about Sasha Farm before we start.
Sure. Sasha Farm is a paradise, a vegan paradise. There's usually 200 rescued animals there at all times, sometimes up to 300. And as vegans, it falls on us to make sure that sanctuaries are taken care of. I firmly believe the meat, dairy, and egg eaters of the world should be taxed and they should be paying for every animal sanctuary, but that's not reality. So it's our responsibility, if we're going to go out and convert people to live a vegan lifestyle, a vegan life, a vegan ethic, then we have to take care of these animals. And there's so many wonderful animals there, cows and pigs, chickens and turkeys, goats and sheep, horses and donkeys, and they all need to be protected and they all need to be cared for. So we need some money. Now, normally Sasha Farm is fine with financing, with funds. They usually bring in $250,000 every year, and that's what they need to run the place. Problem is, the old owner is retiring, and instead of gifting the farm to the next generation, he's demanding that we pay him for the 50 acres of land that Sasha Farm is on, and those 50 acres cost $675,000. So we're trying to raise enough funds so we can pay him off and keep Sasha Farm going. Now, I'm not going to frighten people. Nothing horrible will happen to these animals if Sasha Farm can't stay afloat, but we're going to have to find different homes for them and relocate them. And keep in mind, animals aren't stupid. Animals don't like trucks. Animals see things. They see when animals get on trucks, animals don't come back. So we don't want to stress them out and have to relocate them. So please send what you can. Go to SashaFarm.org. And if you want to help your local sanctuary instead, that's fine too, because all sanctuaries around the world are struggling. So every vegan needs to help some sanctuary somewhere, and also volunteer your time. They always need help. Give 2-3 hours a week, go bale some hay, scoop up some poop, help feed and water the animals, help reconstruct the fences, paint the barn, whatever it is. Sanctuaries all over the world are in need of help, so please do what you can and save the sanctuaries. And you can go online, by the way, if you want to see Sasha Farm, just punch in my name and punch in Sasha Farm. Around 10 years ago, I did 6 or 7 videos when I was there, and they're really cool. It's just me playing with the animals. I just had somebody pull out a camera, say, start recording me, and I was hanging out with Big Red, my best friend there for close to 20 years before he passed away. He was a bull. And you could see me playing with Bima, the ox, a 1 in a billion ox who purrs. He's so happy when you pet him sometimes. He purrs, and I didn't know bovines could purr. I was hanging out with the chickens. In fact, there's a chicken video. I had never been able to grab a chicken over the years and pick them up. They're always too quick for me, and I was afraid that I was going to harm them, so I didn't want to grab them too quickly. I'm shooting this video where I'm next to Rosie, the emu. I'm petting her. A chicken walks by, and I reached out, and for the first time ever on camera, I was able to pick up a chicken. And they're such wonderful creatures. So people need to go hang out at these sanctuaries too. I noticed that vegans rarely go and hang out with the animals that they're always trying to save and help. You guys got to get out there and see what these animals are like. They're individuals with personalities. I'm also hanging out with the turkeys in one of the videos, and some sheep and some goats. In fact, we actually had a rescued ostrich there one time. Hannibal. Hannibal was sweet, but he was damn big. Ostriches are like 8 to 10 feet tall, and Monty told me that he likes grapes. So he wanted me to hold a grape. Could you pick a smaller piece of fruit for a bigger animal? So all of a sudden, Hannibal comes walking towards me, and I'm like, I can't do it, and end up dropping the grape. But Hannibal was so sweet all the time. Honestly, he was just very intimidating. But there's some wonderful videos online. Go check them out. And again, help SashaFarm.org.
I will put a link in the description also. Recently, I was visiting a rescue farm in Israel, a pretty big one. It's also we have a rescue farm that need help here in Israel. You have Sasha Farm. Help as much as you can.
Oh, by the way, I know I think the farm you're talking about is Freedom Farm. Is it Freedom
Freedom
Farm?
Farm, yes, we
Freedom
we made
Farm is
video
run
there.
by somebody that I converted, a Gary vegan, Maytal. She's a wonderful human being, one of the best animal care managers on this planet, just like Shara Jones back in Michigan at Sasha Farm. So, yes, the Israelis out there, please help out Freedom Farm. They are in desperate situations as well. They have a bunch of wonderful animals there, too. Maytal, one of the best activists on this planet. Love to Maytal.
Shout out to Meital. Gary, by the way, your success in Israel was enormous. Still is. A lot of Gary vegans are in key jobs. The food and meat plant-based industry in Israel is pretty strong. A lot of food tech, and a lot of them are Gary vegans.
What happened in Israel in 2012 and 13 was the absolute most magical animal rights moment I have ever seen and that I have ever been a part of. I can't believe how fortunate I was to be the catalyst for what happened in Israel. Thanks to Hovav, great activist, and Omri, who runs Vegan Friendly, and Maytal at Freedom Farm, and Daniel, who recorded everything while I was there. They set up so many lectures for me when I showed up. And it was funny because it wasn't my country. Obviously, I'm from Michigan. I'm from America. So I told them, oh, just set up a bunch of talks at colleges. And I said, just point me towards the stage and I'll start preaching. So when they picked me up for the first day of lectures, they're taking me to a bar. And I said, what do you mean a bar? He said, well, we rented out a bar. You're going to give a lecture there. I said, who the hell's going to come to a bar to listen to a lecture? What are you guys doing? You're supposed to be colleges. Well, we get to the bar, 220 people, packed house. I literally had to fight my way through the crowd to get to the stage. But on top of that, there were about 200 or 300 people outside wanting to get in, and they couldn't get in. So we set up projectors in the street so they can watch the speech that I was giving. Israel, man, it was the most amazing thing. People were coming out to listen to a talk on veganism. This was the first country I had ever heard of or seen taking part and wanting to learn about veganism. And I wasn't preaching to the choir because I told Hovav and Omri and Maytal, I don't want to preach to the choir. So if vegans are showing up, I don't want them, don't let them in. And then we came up with a great idea. If you were vegan, you had to bring a meat, dairy, and egg eater with you if you wanted to attend. And they all said, "We know the vegans out here. It's a small community. We can," and I saw them at the front door going, "Nope, you got to go back," and pointing. And people would come back with their moms, their dads, their brothers, their sisters, their friends, their neighbors. So it was a hell of an experience. And according to the media, they said that I converted anywhere from 5 to 10% of the population. What an experience. And considering all the things that have been going on in Israel for the last 75, 80, whatever years, it's amazing that the number one viewed speech in Israel is a
That is
speech on
speech.
animal liberation by yours truly. And it was so magical. I remember walking from the hotel in the morning just to go to the gym before my lectures. People were stopping their cars on the streets. They were jumping out, going, "There's the vegan man." Like, the vegan man in America, all I got was "fuck you, get a life." But in Israel, it was like, "There's the vegan guy. There he is." And they would line up to take pictures. And I'd stand in the street like this, like, "Come on, come on. I have to go work out. I have a lecture in 2 hours." And I'd stand with my hands out like this, my arms out, and they'd just step in and take a picture. I never experienced such love and such warmth like I did in Israel. And I remember too, I can't remember the name of the restaurant, but I converted the owner of what they tell me is Israel's fanciest restaurant. And they brought me there for an event with 300 Gary vegans. So I go to this event, I walk around, I say hi to everybody. Always very cordial to everybody, but I'm never satisfied. So as I sit down for my meal, 2 hours later, finally, I'm looking around the room and I'm like, wait a second. All these people are Gary vegans. I converted all these people. Hang on a second. And I crossed my arms and I looked around and I was trying to take it in. I said, well, I'm not satisfied. It's not enough because it's never enough for the animals. As wonderful as it was converting all those people, 5 to 10%, there were 90 to 95% that I still wanted to reach. But they were coming out so wonderfully. We were renting out movie theaters. I remember filling up movie houses with 500, 600, 700, 800 students. Oh, and the most magical moment, it's all coming back to me now. Listen up, Ken. So I remember one day I was supposed to speak at a high school. And remember, there was a big stir about this, and the health, or the whatever the department is that controls who visits
Education
school, the
Ministry.
education department. They ended up throwing me out and banning me. So a couple parents said, "Would you lecture in our backyard if we invited the students from this school?" I said, "Yeah, sure, but no one's going to show up after school to listen to a lecture." She said, "Just come to our house, please." And there's a video online of this. If you punch in my name, punch in backyard lecture. So as I'm sitting there, and there's only 3 or 4 students there now, and it's 15 minutes after it was supposed to start. And I said, "Yeah, good try, nice try. I appreciate the sentiment, but no one's going to show up." And then a student shows up and says, "Gary, don't leave. They're coming." So what do you mean? Just wait, hold on another 15 minutes. And all of a sudden, 10 more people showed up, 20 more students, 50. There were a couple hundred students that came to hear a lecture about veganism after school. This is how wonderful Israelis are and were when it came to animal liberation issues. And I gave a speech in somebody's backyard, and the kids, I think every student swore that they were going to become vegan that day. That might have been the most magical moment of the magical moment that I was having in Israel these few weeks. So much love to my Israeli brothers and sisters.
A
And
lot
by
of
the
people
way,
ask me to. A lot of people ask me to send you love from Israel. Many people.
much love right back to everybody. The only thing I'm going to say, I met an Israeli activist when I was in Cologne, Germany last month, and he told me the activists aren't too active lately. So I'm going to call everybody out. Everybody, come on now. Gary veganism is wonderful. Being a Gary vegan is great. Being vegan is awesome. But we need you to speak out. The animals need you to speak out. So don't just be vegan without teaching and educating other people. So please, because there was a time too, you guys were bringing out thousands of people, 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 people to a protest. I've never seen anything like what I saw after I left Israel with the activism that was going on there. So let's get that back. I'm not scolding anybody, I'm encouraging people. Bring back that wonderful Israeli activism and let's turn that whole country vegan. Let's make Israel the first vegan country on this planet.
Hallelujah. Amen.
Amen.
My best friend, Karin, uh, one day in 2012, she don't see any news, any media. One day she went to work, and her boss, which is not vegan, told her, you heard Gary's speech? She told him, what is Gary's speech? She went home. She listened to the entire speech. She told me in 10 minutes, in 10 minutes, everything clicked. Up until this day, she's one of the most beautiful vegans I meet. She's beautiful, and Gary, you made the click in 10 minutes of your speech. It's amazing.
You know what? I don't know why Israel was so open to it, but they were. I used to make a joke when I was there because a lot of media people said, "Why here?" Maybe it's because it's God's holy land. I don't know. It's supposed to be happening in Israel. Maybe this is the first place where it's supposed to go down, where humans are supposed to have proper relationships with animals. All I know is they were the most open minded people I had ever encountered. And I've been vegan now for 29 years, and I still say Israelis, the most open minded society when it comes to animal rights issues. It was just a glorious experience. And I don't know, man. You know, that speech that I gave, so I was in my prime, by the way, back then. So it was like I had been lecturing since 2002. So when I recorded that Georgia Tech speech, the best speech ever, was 2010. Definitely in my prime. I became so adept at speaking to people, at explaining this issue. I was putting myself in their position. And remember, I used to be like everybody else. I wasn't raised vegan, so I knew what they were thinking. And every time I came up with a section of my speech, I said, what are they going to say now, though? I better answer this. And I put myself in their position. Then I answered that. And I'm bringing this up because one of the most common comments that I heard was, as you kept speaking, I kept having questions, but then you kept answering those questions in your speech. And I said, I know, I used to be you. Don't act like I was born differently. I used to be you. I know what you're thinking. So it was a hell of a speech that I gave. It's probably my favorite speech out of the 2,660 speeches. Now, when I was in Israel, though, since most people had already seen that speech, I did come up with other versions of my speech. So in 2012, I was doing a different speech for Israel. 2013, I gave him some fresh stuff too. It was just a magical experience, and it was, man. You know what? I'd like to get back there too. I don't
You're
want to.
always
I don't want to give
welcome.
anything away, and I don't know what's going to happen. But there's some rumblings. I said something to Omri, and we might be setting something up maybe for next year. Who knows? Maybe there's going to be a return visit finally, because it's been more than 10 years since I've been there, and I'd love to go back and talk to people again, and see if I can get the activists to be active again, and see if I can get the non-vegans to become vegans. I thought it was really cool there too that I don't know if people remember when I was there, Domino's Pizza, in my honor, decided to add vegan cheese to the menu, and we were trying to order.
Up
I
until
remember we
this
were.
day.
So,
Up until this day.
yeah, we were trying to order a pizza the first night. There was a 3 hour wait. You really couldn't get a vegan pizza. This is how many vegans were out there ordering from Domino's, and I thought it was cool that.
I'm glad to say to you today, uh, almost every pizzeria have a vegan option across the country.
Yeah, and I heard a lot of the dairy companies are keep adding more non-dairy and more vegan and plant-based yogurts and milks. It's a great market, and I hear there's a lot of cool now sell meat companies coming out of Israel too that are Gary vegans. And this is probably the future where it's going to be headed, where I don't foresee society necessarily having a collective awakening of the conscience. I see the meat, dairy, and egg industries turning to the cell meat. And if people don't understand this, let me break it down real quickly. There's no animal abuse involved. It's taking a biopsy from an animal. It's taking some cells. And keep in mind, humans get biopsies all the time. We've all been to a doctor. They've had to take a biopsy from a mole or from a possible tumor or something on your body. There's no pain involved. So they take the cells and then they grow the cells in a laboratory. No heads, no brains, no central nervous system, no consciousness. So now we've solved the ethical dilemma. The cruelty angle has been solved. So once the meat, dairy, and egg people realize how much money they're going to save doing it this way, also keep in mind, I mean, right now the meat, dairy, and egg industries they have to pay a farmer to have a field full of crops. They got to pay for those crops. They got to pay for John Deere tractors to cut down those crops. They got to pay the farmers for their time. They got to pay a truck to come out and pick up all those crops, take those crops to the animals who are located somewhere else. The feedlots, the cage-free, the free range, the factory farms. They got to pay people to feed all these animals. They got to build a building to house these animals. Then they got to pay somebody to go get these animals from these places and put them on a truck, pay for the truck, pay the truck driver, pay for the gas, pay for the oil, transport the animals to a slaughterhouse that they have to build. They got to pay slaughterhouse workers to cut these animals up into pieces. Then they got to take those cut up pieces to a processing plant, cut them up into more pieces, package them up, then put them on the trucks. Once they realize there's going to be one big building, they're going to grow the meat, grow it from clotheslines. They're just growing flesh. They're going to take the flesh to the other side of the building, cut it up, wrap it up, put it on the truck, out the door. I see this being the future, and I see this saving the lives of 63 billion land animals right now, which are how many animals are being enslaved, exploited, and murdered on this planet. I also see this helping the trillions of marine animals. They're going to do this with fish flesh too. So this is a solution. It's not the greatest solution because I want people to have an ethical awakening. But I'll tell you what, if this is how that cruelty is going to end and save the lives of trillions of animals, I'll take it. Now we're still going to have other issues we have to solve. You know, animal research, vivisection, circuses with animals in it, rodeos, horse carriages, dog racing, horse racing, product testing, zoos. But I'd rather focus on those issues, which only represent 2% of the exploitation going on this planet. 98% of animals who are abused, exploited, and murdered, who have their babies stolen, this is happening in the meat, dairy, and egg industries. So I hear there's a lot of great companies coming out of Israel in the sell meat division, and I'm going to support those companies, and everybody should.
By the way, Gary, in 2020, there was a pandemic, if you remember. Many people back then start talking and make the connection about how human exploit animal and how it developed to maybe this pandemic, like mad cow disease, swine flu. Some people even say that this pandemic made from experiment on animals. Do you think veganism could prevent the next pandemic or reduce the chance of it happening?
Absolutely. All of our viruses are coming from the animals. The Spanish flu, which was actually the original swine flu, the bird flu. I used to tell my Q&A sessions back in my lectures in America. I said, "You guys want to cure the bird flu? Get rid of it? Stop enslaving and murdering chickens. Stop eating chicken flesh. You want to stop the swine flu? Stop enslaving and murdering pigs and eating pig flesh." It's a very simple formula. Yes, this COVID thing started in Wuhan, China, in a meat market. Absolutely, this was the fault of meat, dairy, and egg eaters all over this planet. And I also found it to be humorous when they were telling everybody to wash their hands before they ate meat. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm an OCD clean freak. You should be washing your hands, okay? Every time you touch money, you touch card keys, you touch a door handle, every time you come back home, you should be washing your hands. But if you're going to wash your hands before you eat animal flesh or the things that come out of animals, what's the fucking point? You're eating the virus. It's not going to protect you. It never will. So it's kind of a pointless thing that humans get involved in, and shocking that humans are doing pointless things like we always do. But there's no doubt we could eliminate all these viruses which come from animals if we simply got rid of animal agriculture and stopped exploiting animals. It's a simple formula.
education is the key. Gary, if you gave one less lecture next year, 2026, what will be different from the most famous speech ever?
There's not going to be much different because we still have the same issues going on. I'm still going to explain animal exploitation, how it's wrong to view animals as commodities, as property, as food, clothing, research specimens, and entertainment. This is the basis of the vegan principle. I'm still going to challenge people to put themselves in the victim's position, and we have to look at all these issues involving animal exploitation from the victim's point of view. Keep in mind, don't look at it from your point of view. You're the victimizer in this situation. Look at it from the victim's point of view, because then all of a sudden things become a little more difficult to justify if you look at it from that position. I'm still going to point out the baby stealing that goes on. I might come up with new examples, such as, let's say there's a black woman, a white woman, an Asian woman, Hispanic woman. They're pregnant. They give birth. Whose baby is it? Well, it's theirs, of course. Okay, well then, if a cow, pig, chicken, or turkey has a baby, whose baby is it? The meat eaters? The meat industries? The dairy, the egg industries? Look at the injustice. It's simple. I brought this up too. Maybe I'll use some more Holocaust comparisons. How come if you take the Jews out of Auschwitz and put cows, pigs, chickens, and turkeys in, some people don't think there's still a Holocaust going on? There's still a Holocaust going on, just different victims. The victims look differently, but the same actions are taking place. You're viewing the victims as worthless, like they don't count, like they don't matter, like their lives aren't important to them. They might not be important to you, but who cares? They're not your life. Again, victim's point of view. So I'm going to use a lot of analogies. I'm going to put victimizers in the victim's position. I'm going to talk about all the horrible things that go on, like in the egg industry. Do people realize that males don't lay eggs, only females do? So all the egg factories, they have a hatchery because you have to make sure that there's more females to lay eggs. But in this hatchery, they're separating females from males. Well, the males are useless now. They don't lay eggs, so they grind them up while they're fully conscious as chicks. This is what's so evil to me too, as meat, dairy, and egg eaters continue to do what they do. They're not just animal killers. They're baby animal killers. What kind of evil, vile, disgusting, thoughtless human being would kill a baby? Chickens are killed off at 6 weeks. If they're males in the egg industry, they're killed off 1 day old. Who kills a 1 day old baby? That's horrible stuff. Pigs are killed off at 6 months. Cows are killed off at 2.5 years. They're young, they're adolescents. So people need to open up their eyes, and I'm going to do the same stuff in this speech. I'm going to point out all the horrors that are going on. I'm going to talk about what a slaughterhouse is like. In fact, nowadays, you know, one of the standard methods of death? A gas chamber. Can I make some more Holocaust comparisons? They actually are using gas chambers now for about 75% of all chickens and pigs when they're being killed. Now they're pumping carbon dioxide gas into these chambers, which burns the insides of these animals as they're suffocating. This is just purely evil stuff. I'm going to make people understand, as I always have, that injustice is injustice. That cruelty is cruelty. Violence is violence, even if the victim walks on all fours. Even if the victim has fur, feathers, horns, beaks, or gills. People have to stop comparing animals to humans, whether who's more important or not, and start looking at the actions of the victimizer. That's what I'm condemning, that the victimizer always thinks they have a right to victimize somebody else. So the speech would be just as powerful. Just might be some new examples, but I'm still going to break it down in the same way, and I'm still going to hold people accountable. You don't get to walk around with an imaginary halo over your head when you're eating corpses, when there's cut up corpses in your refrigerator, when there's cut up corpses in your stomach. If you're a walking graveyard, I'm going to call you out. The vegans of the world are going to call you out and make you align with your ethical principle. People think that they're ethical and kind, But if you're abusing and exploiting animals, if you're eating them and wearing them and thinking that they don't matter, you're just as unjust as a Nazi, just as unjust as a white slave owner in America when they had black slaves, just as unjust as a domestic abuser that beats up his wife or his girlfriend, just as unjust as a child molester that rapes a child. This is how serious this issue is. And when you look at the numbers, when you talk about 63 billion land animals, innocent beings, 100% innocent, 2.7 trillion marine animals, 100% innocent, being tortured and killed and exploited every single year on this planet. Nothing compares. You could add up all the atrocities that humans have gone through. It's a pittance. It doesn't even register when you set it next to, when you compare it, when you juxtapose it next to the animal holocaust, the animal slavery, and the animal exploitation and murder that's happening on this planet every year.
And by the way, a lot of Jewish people were mad about you when you mentioned Holocaust in this area. And actually, the word Holocaust mean, as far as I know, it's mean sacrifice animals. The root, the etymology of the word. It's crazy that Jewish people were mad about the use of the word Holocaust. People don't be there at first. It's
It's
crazy.
weird to me that anybody would be mad. Like, why would people be mad? Do you think your life is more important than theirs? Well, what do you want your atrocity to be viewed in a better light than their atrocity? It's an atrocity. Why would you compare it like that? Like ours is worse. No, listen. And if you do want to compare it, because people might say, well, Gary, you just compared it with numbers. Well, let's compare it. There's only one way. How many? Well, then nobody has suffered more than the animals. But I don't even care which one is worse. They're all disgusting. I'm not mad that there was, that people made a reference to a Jewish Holocaust comparing it to the animal Holocaust. And you shouldn't be mad that I made a reference to an animal Holocaust being worse than the Jewish Holocaust or just as bad. Holocausts are evil. We should try to eliminate and eradicate all Holocausts, all forms of slavery, all forms of torture, all forms of oppression, all forms of murder. This is an unjust, murderous thing. Why would people be so upset that chickens are going through the same thing that Jews went through? It always boggled my mind. But good news is, most of the Jewish people were wonderful and understood that comparison. In fact, there's a whole slew of Holocaust survivors that became vegans, that became animal rights people because they lived it. And I would always expect more from a group of people who went through oppression to understand what oppression is like, to be treated like nothing. I mean, imagine this. Imagine the day you were born. Somebody else had already planned the day of your execution. This is what it's like to be an animal on this planet. The day they're born, they've already been marked. 6 weeks from now, you're a chicken, you're going to die. We're going to chop your head off, or we're going to put you in a gas chamber. How could anybody be upset about a comparison that's being made, especially when the comparison is valid, especially when animals are being shipped to the slaughterhouse in the same concentration camp trucks or rail cars that Jews were being taken to? It's the same thing. How can anybody be upset when an elephant in the circus that has chains around her front left leg or her back right leg? How could any black person be upset about the slavery analogy? They were both kept in chains. But there were some black people over the years that were upset, but most black people actually that I talked to understood it and said, you know what? It is the same chains. They wear the same chains. So I always would expect more from a group of people that went through oppression to understand what the animals are going through. I'll tell you what, my toughest crowd whenever I gave a lecture was a group of white males. White males were a tough crowd. I'm not saying they're unreachable, but white males have always been at the pinnacle of oppression. They've been the oppressors, never the oppressed. So it was tougher to explain oppression to a group of people that never went through it. But when I had groups of Jews, blacks, women, and gays, they were my best crowds. Because when I talked about the injustice and the oppression, they would shake their heads like, yeah, I know what it's like. I certainly know what it's like to be viewed as less than equal. And that's what we're doing to animals right now.
And by the way, one of the hostages that free from captivation, was vegan before he captivate by Hamas. They free him, and then when he came out, the first thing he want to point is back to veganism. He understood the horrified things we do as people. It's bringing back.
Man, what a horrible experience that person must have went through. And again, you would understand what the animals are go through. Well, what they go through, and that's a great story. Thank you for sharing that with me. It touches my soul. Obviously she can't be, or he, I'm sorry if you said it was a man or a woman,
Yeah,
he couldn't be held accountable. He was in a horrible situation where they weren't going to go out of their way and serve him vegan food. But as soon as you're capable of living vegan, you have to do that, and that's a great example. Wow, that's obviously similar to the Holocaust people,
yes.
the people that came out and survived and said, you know what, I'm done eating flesh. I'm done with it. I'm done viewing somebody else as if their life doesn't matter, because that's what I just went through.
Gary, what inspire you? What make you? You talk about a lot of heavy stuff, and how you recharge? What makes you happy?
Well, so what inspires me? Well, what got me
What
started
inspire
was,
you?
yeah, in the 90s, my stepdad was a clown in the circus, and he took me backstage to see some elephants. I was excited, but I didn't know what was going on. I saw elephants in chains. I saw monkeys screaming in their cages. I knew something was wrong. I didn't know exactly what was wrong, but you don't need to be a philosopher or a veterinarian or a wildlife biologist to understand injustice and to sense and feel injustice, to look at the animal's behavior, just like you would
What
look
was
at a
your age?
child. Huh?
What was your age? What was your age back then?
I
How
was
many?
23, it was 1993, and I was just viewing those animals in the same way I would view a baby. A baby can't speak to us, but you know, if a baby's not feeling well, if they're crying, you start paying attention. What are you crying for? You sense it. Oh, you're hungry? You're scared? You want to be held? Where I saw these animals screaming. I saw them swaying back and forth neurotically or rocking back and forth. I said, these are neurotic behaviors. These are unhappy beings. So then I went to a slaughterhouse, and it was the Thornapple Valley Pig Slaughterhouse in Eastern Market area of Detroit. I saw 6 trucks the first day full of pigs waiting to be called in. And I walked up to those trucks, still a stubborn meat eater, but I knew it was wrong and evil. And their eyes were screaming at me, why are you doing this to us? I remember looking back, and in my head, I was saying, I don't know. Tears rolling down my face, still a stubborn flesh eater. The following year, I called up a radio station in Detroit because our hockey team throws dead octopuses on the ice during the playoffs. So I rambled about how evil that was. The host called me out and said, well, what did you have for dinner? I lied. I said I had a salad, but at the end of the 2-minute phone call, I made up for the lie because that's one of my best traits. The truth I speak gets me in trouble. Everybody knows this. I don't lie. So I hung up the phone and said, I'll never eat a piece of meat again. The following year, though, I still wasn't vegan. I was only vegetarian. I went to Washington, D.C. for the March for Animals on Capitol Hill. A group of people from Texas came in, said Texans for Animal Rights on their shirt. And this is an important story. I want people to listen. I don't condemn people for being ignorant, for not knowing. It's after you find out the truth, you're not supposed to be fighting anymore. So here's how this conversation went. I said, hey, my name's Gary. How you guys doing? Hey, Gary, where can we go get a veggie burger? I said, oh, the Hard Rock Cafe right down the street. Just had a great veggie burger there. But Gary, that burger's not vegan. So what do you think happens to mother cows when they can't give milk anymore? Oh, my response was, oh, one syllable. Like, how could I miss that? Why didn't I know? And that's what made me vegan. So when I stepped into a classroom, I heard people snickering, making jokes. Oh, I should have brought a hamburger in. I should have brought my deer head in. Oh, we got to listen to this damn vegan all day. I wasn't mad at anybody before because I used to be the same way. It was after the lecture, if you still wanted to argue with me, I said, wait a second. I ended the speech by, what's your excuse now? that was a sarcastic joke. Why would you make an excuse and be defiant about eating meat, about stealing somebody else's baby, about being vicious and mean and cruel to an innocent being? I don't understand it now. I just gave you all the information. And even if you weren't going to become vegan at that spot, there shouldn't be any arguments. It should be okay, the seed has been planted. I need to get on the path to veganism as soon as possible, which is what I ask people to do. So that's what made me a vegan. And then I realized after I ran the gamut of activism, I got arrested 13 times, did acts of civil disobedience. I broke into a fur farm in Blenheim, Ontario, Canada. I gave 1,542 mink a chance to be free that night. Otherwise, they were going to have their necks manually broken and the fur ripped off their bodies so some vain, disgusting human being can wear their skin. I was sentenced to 6 months in prison. I was kicked out of the country after 77 days. And then I started getting invited into schools to tell people why I was going to jail for the animals. And then I realized education is where it's at. People were all of a sudden listening, and it was easier for me to explain it during a 60-minute lecture instead of having 10 seconds on the street. So if I was on the street doing my protest for the circus, people would walk by and say, please don't go to the circus, the elephants are in chains and I'm being beaten. Please don't go to the circus, the bears are kept in cages. And it was hard to make change in 10, 15 seconds. So once I got to the classroom and saw how many people were listening and changing, I said, education, this is where it's at. So then I started contacting professors all over the country. I would send out mass emails asking if I could speak in their classrooms. Next thing you know, let's see, it's 2002. I had already done 111 lectures in the Michigan, Ohio area, but I couldn't travel. I didn't have any money. PETA actually reached out to me. I became PETA's official national lecturer in 2002. They decided to cover my traveling expenses. It wasn't cheap to travel, airfare, hotels, rental cars, and food. And I went from 37 lectures in the first semester to 76 lectures in the next semester, and then the next year, I was averaging 100 lectures every single semester, which put it at a minimum of 200 talks a year. Sometimes I was doing 220. One year I did it 263 lectures. I would do as many lectures as I could in one day. I was rarely doing one lecture a day. It was two, three, four, five, six lectures. One day I did seven. One day I did eight. I was at a high school. They brought me to every single classroom, just shuttled me around the whole building. And how could I say no? As tired as I was, I just like, yeah, wait, 40 more students? Yeah, okay, just bring me a banana, somebody, fill me up with a banana. So I never charged for my lectures. My joke was, if I was leaving a school because I was causing so much stir on campus, a lot of professors, as I was walking out of the last classroom after 3 lectures, they say, hey, Mr. Yourofsky, everyone's talking about your lecture. I got a classroom of 50 students starting in 10 minutes. It's a sociology class. You want to come speak to it? What am I going to say? No? I'm like, okay, yeah. Could you just run to the cafeteria and grab me 2 or 3 bananas? That's what I'm charging. So they, yeah, sure. So I would do as many talks as I could, and then I would jump in the car and drive to the next city. I didn't care how crazy, as long as I could physically do it. So if it was a 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hour drive, even after a long day, okay. And if I had to sleep on the side of the road, I did that a lot. I would close my eyes, I would pull over on the highway and sleep for 10, 15 minutes, and then drive 2, 3 more hours, pull over, sleep another 10, 15 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, then get back in the car and just one city to the next. And I did this until the end of 2014 when my brain melted, when I just got burnt out, I was stressed out beyond belief. I want people to know the majority of my lectures went wonderfully. I did at least, so if I was averaging 200 lectures, 180 to 185 were perfect. Perfect meaning there wasn't one divisive comment. Nobody screamed, nobody yelled. I'm not saying I converted everybody there, but not one bad comment. I was converting, though, on average 50% of every crowd, a minimum of 15 to 20%. Professors did surveys afterward, too. Never got below that 15 or 20% mark. I was also hearing that about 20 to 25% of students were making a drastic change, removing dairy, removing eggs, maybe doing veganism 2, 3, 4 days a week, something like that. But that left about 15 or 20 talks every year that turned crazy. They were yelling and screaming. And the reason that happened, I analyzed it over the years why anybody would scream and yell. So self-condemnation is pretty hard. It's not impossible. We all did it as vegans. We weren't raised this way. I know it's tough to look in the mirror and say, man, I've been doing something pretty evil. You can't change the past, but you can certainly change the future and you can make amends. So that's what we all did as vegans. We said, oh man, I can't believe I was doing this. I thought I cared about animals. I thought I was an animal lover. So we let our foundations crumble. After we heard the information, it crumbles everything that you once believed in. And we decided to rebuild. If you rebuild, you can survive. You can be rational. Well, what if your foundations crumble, which is what I would do to people after my lectures? What if you try to walk and talk on a crumbled foundation? Well, now you sound like an idiot and a fool, right? And an absolute Nazi. Now you start saying, oh, animals are stupid. Animals don't think. Oh, I wish nothing but death to the animals. I had a student at Miami-Dade College raise his hand after I poured out my heart for 60 minutes, and he said, I wish nothing but violence and death to the animals. Could you imagine the crumbled foundation? Could you imagine the evilness, the stubbornness that would make you say that? Even if you didn't want to become vegan, what do you mean you wish nothing but evil and death to an innocent being? So, but this is what happens if you don't acknowledge that you are wrong. And what's so wrong with acknowledging that you might be wrong? I don't know why people walk around thinking they're perfect, all knowing, omnipotent beings. How could you know everything? You'd be God. You'd be a holy being. How could anybody possibly know everything? And did you ever think that sometimes maybe somebody else knows more than you? I don't profess to know more about other issues besides proper relationships between humans and animals. I'm an animal rights expert. I'm an expert on ethics. I don't claim to know anything else, so I'm not professing that. You don't have to fight me on that on those other topics. But why would you fight me on the issue that I'm an expert in? This is what I studied. This is what made sense to me. This is why your professor brought me into the classroom, because of my expertise and my knowledge, because of what I've been through. So those classes though, those bad classes built up over the years. If I'm averaging 15 or 20 bad talks, well, over about 12, 13 years, all of a sudden that's a couple hundred talks, so it built up. It beat me down, stressed out beyond belief. I couldn't really function much anymore, especially because I was only sleeping around 2 hours a night. My brain is a strange creation. It's a curse and a blessing. I know people love my speeches and everything I come up with and all the things I say. Well, that's because it won't let me sleep at night. Every night I lay down to try to sleep, and my brain says, well, what are you going to think of next? How are you going to explain this tomorrow? What are you going to say when they say this, Gary? And I'm like, no, please. And it would put me in this imaginary debate with somebody, with Bill O'Reilly, Sean Hannity, whoever it was, Stephen Colbert. It's like, wait, they're going to say this? What are you going to say? And then I go, oh, actually, I got something really good. And all those things you hear in my speeches and on my interviews, that was all night long, my brain coming up with this stuff. But the curse is it would never stop. It wouldn't let me sleep at night. So it, I just had to I just had to back down. I had to retire. I felt guilty. I want you to know there wasn't a day that went by that I didn't feel guilty, that I wasn't active anymore. The only good thing was I was so active for nearly 20 years. My activism lived on. My speeches were going viral. The main speech has been converted into more than 35 languages. Last time I checked, and that was years ago, it was more than 20 million hits. People are now reporting that I've converted hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people worldwide to the vegan lifestyle. Look at a lot of the major players in the movement, from Maytal at Freedom Farm Sanctuary to Joey Carbstrong. I inspired Paul Bashir at Anonymous for the Voiceless to be an activist. Vegan Gains became vegan because of me. Jamie Logan was inspired to be a better activist. Rafaela, the militant vegan. The list goes on and on. Earthling Ed was inspired. So if you take into account all the people that I converted and all the people that I converted, we're definitely into the millions of people that have been influenced by that Georgia Tech speech, that one day, that magical moment that a student recorded. I didn't even record it myself. I was so focused on working in the classroom that I wasn't recording all of my speeches. I was just trying to reach those people. So, as I'm retired, smoking a joint, sitting in my underwear, watching Sports Center all day, I was laughing, going, I think I'm still converting people. Somehow I think people are still becoming Gary vegans, even though I'm not doing anything. But I did feel guilty. I was doing stuff. I was saving caterpillars so they can become butterflies. I read a story that 90% of caterpillars never survive because of predators. So I would go out and find them before the birds and the insects. I'd put them in an enclosed environment. I would feed them fennel or dill, parsley, and milkweed. And then once they cocooned and hatched, I would set them free. I released about 500 over the years. There was some guy in my city that was drowning skunks in his backyard. He was catching them. Well, I went to his house, told him if I ever heard that he was doing it again, I was going to do the same thing to him. I'm not kidding. It was a tense moment. I said, let me find out you're doing it again, and I'm going to shove your fucking head into that bucket of water in the back. He said, okay, all right. Well, then I'm still going to catch him. We have to relocate him. I tried to convince him not to catch them. I could not, but it was a good compromise. I said, oh, you catch them, then I'm going to relocate them. And there was a big wooded area nearby. They were only moved like 10 minutes away. So I did that. And I was helping Sasha Farm. I was volunteering. I've been there for 30 years, always going. But I want people to know I hold the word activism so sacred that just wasn't enough for me to call myself an activist anymore. Like I was in the courtroom, I was in the jailhouse, I was on the street corner, I was in the classroom, I was doing way too much stuff to still claim that saving caterpillars and saving some skunks and going to volunteer at the sanctuary qualified as activism for me. Now, good news is, and it took me a while, but I'm back alive again. God, the universe called me out a few months ago. I went to Germany, did a fundraiser for Sasha Farm. I joined Paul Bashir and Anonymous for the Voiceless in Cologne for 31 straight days of street demos, the Cube of Truth. And by the way, what was cool, Paul took my classroom presentation. He condensed it down to 3 minutes to a protocol of approaching people, putting them in the victim's position, explaining animal exploitation being wrong, holding people accountable, and they do amazing work. I've never seen anything like this in my 29 years. So I got involved with them. I got involved with them when they went to Amsterdam after that for 10 days. And then I decided I wanted to get online and tackle the online world. And I hooked up with Carmen Conesa, who's my social media manager, and also became the love of my life, my vegan goddess. I knew when I came out of retirement, when God called me out, He called me out to be active again, to get back in action. He called me out to inspire vegans to become activists, to still reach out to meat eaters to become vegans, and so that I could find my partner in life, form a two-person army, find my vegan goddess. And I am on top of the world right now. I'm loving life so much. I've never loved it so much. And everything is wonderful. And wait till the online stuff happens. We just signed up to a bunch of different platforms. Check out Real Gary Yourofsky, which is my Instagram account. We're on TikTok now. We're on Facebook. And we're going to be recording and posting a bunch of things, probably one post every day. And with Carmen by my side, we're going to tackle the world. We're going to conquer the world. We're going to do some amazing stuff.
Let's prep you for TikTok era. Your speech is a 1 hour speech. How do you how you tell people to be vegan in 15 seconds?
I'm going to do it with Carmen by my side. We're going to do it. This is a running joke of like, yeah, how am I going to talk for 15 seconds when
15
yesterday I
seconds.
actually did well, here, I just talked, I think, for what, 10, 15 minutes right there. Yesterday I did a podcast. The guy asked me one thing about God. It was 15 minutes later before I stopped. Well, I am doing a good job. I'm going to break it down in a quicker way. Listen, I'll just do 15-second segments then. We'll just release the speech in 15-second segments. However, I'm going to come up with a tighter way to say everything. Carmen's going to help me do that stuff. We're going to figure it out. I promise. They're going to be short little clips, short little one-liners. Keep in mind, I have a lot of good one-liners. I have to just remember not to go ramble on around those one-liners. So I'm going to figure this out. I promise.
It will be amazing, I'm sure.
I promise,
Uh,
yeah.
by the way, you speak with a lot of people, a lot of young people maybe. What's the funniest excuse to not be vegan you've heard?
God, there's so many. Really, this is a great question. How about the plant stuff? How about the plant? So people want to say, "Oh, tomatoes feel pain." So I approached somebody recently who gave me the tomato shit, and I said, "So wait a second. So if there's a chicken drowning in some water, and there's a tomato in the water next to the chicken, you jumping in to save the tomato?" So people are ridiculous with this whole plants feel pain nonsense. Plants are insentient beings. And I want people to know it's not that I don't like trees. I love trees. I had a bunch of plants back in Michigan. I have succulents, I have cactus. They're wonderful, cool beings, but they're insentient beings. You can actually cut a cactus off and the cactus still lives. What happens if you cut the leg off of a cow? The cow's gonna bleed to death. There's a major difference. Animals are sentient beings like humans are sentient beings. And I don't like comparing animals to humans because it's an insult to the animals, but we are all sentient beings capable of feeling pain. So there's a major difference. So whenever I hear the plant argument, it's really absurd to me. It's probably the dumbest thing. I'll even go further, though. I mean, the whole God argument is stupid. That anybody would think their God would condone killing baby animals, stealing babies from their mothers, chopping their heads off in places of torture and houses of slaughter. People think that God would condone a gas chamber, burning animals from the inside out, suffocating them. This is could be could be dumber than the whole plant thing. And if people don't realize a phrase that is used pretty much around the world, the phrase is the oldest excuse in the book. I don't think people understand the phrase. The book is the Bible. The oldest excuse, God says it's okay. As George Carlin, my favorite philosopher, once said, the great comedian who passed away, more people have been killed in the name of God than for any other reason. Well, let me add something to Carlin's stuff, and dare I add something to this genius's stuff. Well, more animals have been killed in the name of God than for any other reason as well. So the God thing is pretty stupid. The protein thing is stupid. What about protein? What do you mean? What about protein? Name me. I used to ask the Q during Q and A. I would ask the crowd when this came up. Name me one food that doesn't have protein. I'll wait. Everything has protein, unless you're going to starve yourself, anorexic, bulimic. Unless you're not going to eat, it's impossible not to get enough protein. In fact, there's a disease called with protein deficiency. It's called kwashiorkor. Besides a starvation scenario, name me one person that suffers from kwashiorkor. Doesn't exist, again, unless you're anorexic, bulimic, or you're just starving to death because the food that humans could be eating is being fed to the animals that the meat eaters want to eat. Keep this in mind, another dumb comment I got. Well, humans are more important. I called people out on this. I said, wait a second. You're telling me humans are more important? You don't care about animals? Absolutely, Gary. I only care about humans. I said, then how come every 2 to 3 seconds some human on this planet dies from starvation, but chickens never miss a meal? You'd rather feed chickens. How come turkeys and cows and pigs never miss a meal? They get all the food they want to eat. 50% of the world's crops are used to feed the animals in the meat, dairy, and egg industries. In America, 90% of soy, 80% of corn, 70% of the oats, that's animal feed. So for all the people out there who say, well, animals aren't important, you're choosing to feed them if you're going to eat meat, cheese, milk, and eggs. So I mean, listen, Chen, I've never heard one valid response from a meat, dairy, or egg eater. How about that? I've never heard one. Doesn't exist. In fact, that's how I was always able to answer them. I figured this out early on in the 90s. Just as soon as a meat, dairy, or egg eater starts speaking, they're either lying intentionally or unintentionally because they're a programmed robot. They're misinformed or uninformed. So in my head, as soon as they spoke, I'd say, figure out the lie, figure out the misinformation. Where's the disinformation? Ah, there it is. And all you got to do as a vegan In order to beat a meat, dairy, or egg eater in a debate, figure out the lie. Just figure it out. It's always there, because if they aren't lying, then animals deserve to be tortured and killed, deserve to have their babies stolen, deserve to have their heads chopped off, or be put in a gas chamber. And we know that can't be true. There's no justice behind that. So just figure it out. So that's all I ever did during Q&A, was just figure out all the nonsense. But I don't know,
You became the greatest expert in the world in this area. No one do this better than you.
Listen, and that's because I was doing it so much too, and I had to become an expert. So I'll also say this to the vegans: just study your issue, know your issue, study the Bible. You can beat people at the Bible. That's what I did. In fact, I don't know if people realize, but when I was in jail for the mink liberation, so I did the liberation in '97. The trial took 2 years. I get sentenced in '99. I'm doing a 40-day hunger strike. I told the judge, I said, for the 40 million animals who are being murdered for vanity by the fur industry, I'm doing a 40-day hunger strike. There were biblical references there on purpose. So they put me in the hole. I was there for 10 days. It's a horrible place. It's just like it is in the movies. My hole was a full concrete cell. The lights were on all the time to fuck with me. So you couldn't even sleep, even if you wanted to, even if I could. And they wouldn't let me have any reading material. But I knew they'd give me a Bible. Well, they always want to give you a Bible when you're in jail. So I asked the guard, I think it was on day 2, I said, "Can I get a Bible?" He said, "You want a Bible?" I swear he ran down the hallway to give me a Bible. He grabs me a Bible. I said, "Can I get a pencil and some paper? I'd like to take some notes." "Oh my God, you want to take notes?" So, but he didn't know I wanted to go and study all the animal scriptures. So I open it up. I still got these notes too at home in the basement in a box somewhere. First page, by the way, open up page 1. Genesis 1:29. I give you seed bearing plants for food. In my head, I'm like, did everybody skip page 1? It's the first fucking page. The Garden of Eden was a vegan haven. So next thing you know, I'm going through the Bible. I'm finding great scriptures. Ecclesiastes 3:19. Man has no advantage over the animals. We all come from dust, to dust all return. We all have the same breath. Hosea 2:18. In that day I will make a covenant with the animals, all the birds of the air, the beasts of the field. Bow and sword I will abolish, so all may lay down in safety. Proverbs 12:10. A wise man cares for the needs of his animals, but the kindest acts of the wicked are cruel. I'm on and on. I'm finding wonderful scriptures, and I'm going, what? Did everybody skip over all the peaceful scriptures and they want to accept the violent ones? Unfortunately, there are some violent ones in there, but there have been violent ones in there that humans have used against other human beings. White Christians in America used to use Leviticus 25:45 to justify black slavery. Men have used this to dominate women, Timothy 2:12. So my point is, if you can find contradictory scriptures, and you can, one is violent, one is peaceful, why do people choose the violent one and not the compassionate one? This shows how evil humans are. What a scourge we are. We're the scourge of all scourges, the infestation of all infestations. How dare people walking around claiming that they're godly? Image of God? More like image of the devil. Everything that we do does not mimic God and please God. It mimics the devil and it pleases the devil. And I don't understand why people would choose to be a two-legged devil. Why would people want to be mean and vicious when they can choose to be kind and compassionate? It's a really weird choice that humans make, but this is why I also challenge. This is something new that I'm challenging too, and it's people claim that humans are moral agents. Moral agents? When? Since when? Where? Humans? You mean humans that always have to have a battle and a struggle with other humans to liberate and not oppress other human beings? We might have capabilities, but they're buried deep inside. I'll tell you who's a moral agent, though. Herbivores, giraffes, elephants, rhinos, antelope, bunny rabbits, sloths, capybaras. Herbivores have achieved morality. They've achieved a higher level of consciousness than human beings and carnivores have ever yet to achieve. They're the ones that are getting victimized the most. That's why I'm bringing them up right now. I'm tired of everybody condemning herbivores in every situation, whether it's humans eating them in the meat, dairy, and egg industries, torturing them in experiments. Bunny rabbits are one of the main animals used there. Whether it's people wanting to justify lions eating zebras. And people say, oh, Gary, how could you condemn the lion? Well, no. How could you condemn the zebra? Why do you hate zebras so much that you think zebras should be lion food? Stop condemning the herbivores who are the peaceful beings on this planet. So there's man, it's just the moral agency stuff with human beings drives me crazy. I'm tired of saying that, and I'm challenging animal rights philosophers who have been writing about this for decades. This is Peter Singer stuff. This is Tom Regan stuff, who I adore. Tom Regan was one of my heroes when I started in the 90s, and Dr. Steve Best, who was a good friend of mine at UTEP, great philosophy professor. I challenge the whole humans are moral agents, and I challenge it too because it also places us in a superior position that I'm tired of. This abuse happens because humans think they're special, they're superior. And when we say we're moral agents and animals are moral patients, that devalues the animal. That degrades the animal. Like they can't think clearly. Obviously, zebras, bunny rabbits think clearly. They don't harm anybody. They get along with everybody. How about this scenario? Imagine that there's a lake or a river in the jungles of Africa. There's animals that are drinking water from this lake. There's an elephant there, there's a rhino, there's a giraffe, there's antelope, there's buffalo, there's a capybara. Everyone's in peace. Everyone's in peace drinking water. No one's scared of anybody. Why? Because herbivores ain't harming nobody else. All of a sudden, an alligator shows up. A lion shows up in the background. A human being shows up. All of a sudden, the animals are on edge. Oh, shit. Uh-oh. Well, they're not stupid. Every time a two-legged human being, a two-legged devil comes around, every time those lions come around, somebody dies. Somebody gets killed. Herbivores are the moral agents. They're the ones that are aware of everything. They're the ones that are living ethically, and people need to ease up on the herbivore animals. They're the ones that deserve this planet right now, not the immoral agents that are humans.
Animals are the greatest teachers. We can learn from many animals. Great thing. And also, if you see a video from a slaughterhouse, there's no God there. Gods don't. It's imaginable that someone created us and put it's devilish in fully.
So back in the day when I was recording images, I used to go to slaughterhouses. I've been at vivisection labs, been behind the scenes of every circus that ever came through Michigan. A lot of the footage I was showing in my slaughterhouse videos was footage that I took. And when I was there, I agree with your sentiment completely. I knew there was no God there. In fact, there were times when I was filming, I'd turn around like this. I'd be filming, I'd go like this. I felt like the devil was behind me. The hair in the back of my neck would stand up at these places. There is no God at a slaughterhouse. It's a godless place. And of course, it would have to be. How could a God be at this horrible place? That's the devil's realm. And the greatest trick the devil ever did was convince people to do things in God's name that God would never condone. And he's been doing that throughout history. He was behind black slavery. He was behind women being oppressed and raped and thrown into the sex trade. He was behind children being raped. He was behind all the atrocities, convincing groups of people or individuals to do evil things in God's name. When are people going to love in the name of God instead of killing in the name of God? There's a great song by Rage Against the Machine, Killing in the Name of. I mean, that's what they're saying. The whole, at every, and religious people are the toughest people to talk to as well. Now, I'm not saying they're impossible. I've converted tons of religious people. There are great religious vegans around the world. But you want to talk about a tough crowd, just like the white male crowd? The white male crowd and the religious crowd are the toughest. I'll tell you a quick story. I've told this before, but it's a great story. I was at Valley Forge Christian College in rural Pennsylvania. Used to speak there, man, 7, 6, 7, 8 years in a row. Dr. Bruce Marino, the Reverend, brought me in, and I'm having a great lecture this one day. And then we get to the Q&A session, and now the scriptural battle starts. Keep in mind, I know my scripture. So what happens is I say my scripture that's peaceful, and somebody else says a violent scripture. So back and forth, I'm winning the crowd over, I'm losing the crowd, winning the crowd. So finally, I kind of get fed up after about 45 minutes. I realize there's only about 5 minutes left in the class, anyways. So I can be dramatic, as people know. I go to the front of the class and I put my hands up in the air and close my eyes. I'm waiting for people to shut up. But this took about 60 seconds because I hear him murmuring too, like, what's he doing? What's Gary doing out there? And they didn't know, but I'm like, I'm waiting for people to shut the fuck up. So they finally shut up. And in my head, I didn't have an ending. I rarely had an ending when I freestyle, but I knew I would end up in the right spot because I was speaking on behalf of oppressed beings. So I start out, I'm thinking that I'm going to say every horrible thing and evil thing that humans do to animals, but I'm going to preface it by saying if God says it's okay. So if God says it's okay to rip the testicles out of baby pigs, if God says it's okay to cut the beaks off of hens, if God says it's okay to keep elephants in chains at the circus, this goes on for about 3 minutes. My brain was really sharp back then. I listed everything I could think of. And then I said, if God says it's okay, then what does the devil do? And the crowd just froze. And in fact, in my head, I said, don't forget about that one. That's a good one. That was a freestyle. And in the back corner of the room, Dr. Marino is sitting there like this, arms crossed, shaking his head. And he says, everybody give Mr. Yourofsky a round of applause. A little fire. Oh, he shed the light on some darkness. And half the crowd, as usual, became vegan. The other half, I don't know what else I could do, but speak the truth. But there's so many wonderful examples of reaching religious people. But you need to know your biblical arguments. Don't just say, "Oh, that's nonsense." You're not going to win a battle with a religious person. Know the Bible. And I'm mad at atheists. This goes out to the atheists. A lot of atheists out there that are vegans, and a lot of atheists that aren't. So atheists don't act like atheists always get it too, because they're always making that assumption. All the religious people are stupid. Atheist people are stupid too when it comes to being nice to animals. But I had some atheist friends over the years that refused to listen to my examples about how to discuss the Bible with religious people. And I said, what are you doing? And they're like, oh, well, I don't believe in God. God's stupid. Oh, fine, do what you want to do. But how are you going to win the battle? You can't say that to a religious person. And then I would say, here, let me explain this. Can you tell me why animal experimentation is unscientific? And they said, of course, Gary, you can't make anything relevant from one species to another. There's no extrapolative coefficient. There's no formula. You can't work on a mouse to help a monkey, can't work on a monkey to help a horse, can't work on a mouse or a monkey or a horse to help a human being. I said, wow, I didn't realize you were a scientist. Gee, I didn't realize you were studying to be a doctor at night school behind my back. Is that what's been going on? I said, oh, it's amazing you can tell me the scientific reasons why animal research doesn't work. But you can't tell me as an atheist why the Bible is not saying what they think it's saying. You can't even use thou shalt not kill. You can't even come up with the golden rule, do unto others as you would have done unto yourself, which is in every single religion on this planet. Just know some basic arguments so you can tell people they're not walking with God, they're walking against God. They're walking with the devil. They're doing horrible things that God would never condone. So everybody know your religious arguments.
Yes, and also, Gary, I think almost everybody in the world would agree that if you imagine the Garden of Eden, there's no slaughterhouse there. There's no animal killing each other. Everybody like capybara saint.
It was a perfect paradise. And that's so this is something you can also bring out. Keep it simple. Just say the Garden of Eden was a vegan haven. The way God intended it, the animals, there were no carnivore animals either. Everybody was living in peace. And you can prove the Garden of Eden by using another scripture, Isaiah 11:7. God's holy mountain. The wolf will live with the lamb, the cow will feed with the bear, the lion will eat straw like the ox, a child will lead them, and no one will harm on my holy mountain. So the most perfect states that God created, the Garden of Eden and the holy mountain, are vegan havens. This is indisputable. There's no argument. End of discussion. So why don't we strive towards those perfect states? Instead, the evilness of human, we strive against it. We
Yes,
strive towards hell. Right?
we
Yeah,
can make Garden of Eden here today if all the people will understand this.
it's a simple concept, but humans are just incorrigible. They're just too violent and too mean and too egotistical, too selfish. They think that their lives are the only lives that matter. And then it's groups of people think that their lives are more important than some other group. This is why there's human injustice going on this planet, too. How about this? What about heaven? And I don't care what religion you believe in. You telling me there's slaughterhouses in heaven? Like where would killing be in God's most perfect state? So it's maddening. This is what led to my retirement, by the way. Now you're picking up reasons like my brain is melting. Why are people so defiant about being kind to animals? Out of all the things you can choose to be defiant about, it's like meat, dairy, and egg eaters are 8-year-old brats who've been punished by their parents and had their Xbox taken away, and they're like, no, I want more meat, bacon. It's like, grow up already. Grow up. Let it go. It's not cute. It's not funny. It's not funny when somebody else is suffering and dying. And if you want to make a joke about it, hey, I'm a funny guy. You can make jokes about it, but don't take part in it. I'll give you an example too. South Park, one of the funniest shows ever. By the way, I'm like South Park when people want to point out, oh, Gary picked on this group of people or that. I pick on everybody. I'm like South Park. I've made fun of vegans before. But South Park had an episode about veganism, and they had us marrying the animals because we love the animals so much. Okay, that's funny. That's a funny joke. You can be funny about it, but that doesn't mean you take part in it. That doesn't mean you steal somebody else's baby and chop somebody's head off. But okay, you can make a joke about vegans and how much we love animals. Yes. And by the way, I'd rather hang out with a bunch of animals than a bunch of humans any day of the week. Any day of the week. In fact, the amount of time I can tolerate humans is around 2 hours. Why 2 hours? That's about how long I work out at the gym every day. That's enough human contact for 2 days. Then I want to go home and stay away from humans as much as possible. Except one wonderful human, Carmen.
By the way, the gym, I have some question from the crowd, from the people.
Sure.
One of the question was about the gym. At the gym where you work out, do you end up having conversation about veganism or do you keep it strictly gym talk?
So nowadays, here's where I am. Now, I've been in the trenches 29 years, so I got some good vegan radar. I got radar with people. In fact, I had a gift in the class. When I walked into a classroom, I always had a gift where I could tell how everybody was. Good, bad, on the fence, good, bad. Oh, he's trouble. Oh, she's going to be great. He's going to be great. I was 99.99% accurate. Same thing at the gym. I walk into the gym. I'm like, you know what? Chris will listen. Terry's not going to listen. Adrian will listen. Natalie's going to listen. Big Mike's going to listen. I don't think Big John's going to listen. Like, whatever it is. So I approach the people that I know would listen, would be willing to watch my speech once I gave it to them. And the other people, I avoid it. I mean, what's the point of getting into an argument that you're not going to win? If somebody is just not open minded, this is what leads to stress. This is what leads to burnout, brain melt. So I'll advise people, use your radar. Find the people that are thirsting for knowledge. Because let's face it, there are plenty of people thirsting for knowledge. That's why I became vegan. That's why you became vegan, and Carmen became vegan, and the millions of other people who are vegans. We were open minded to it. Stop arguing with your family, too. It's not just the gym people. If your family is closed minded, and most family members are, just like mine is, well, I stopped talking to them years ago. Why would I bang my head against the wall with somebody that is disinterested, that doesn't have an open mind whatsoever, when I can find somebody with an open mind? So yes, I've converted a lot of people at the gym, by the way, and I've planted the seeds in a lot of other people's minds who were open-minded. But I don't talk about veganism with people that don't listen. In fact, I'll give you an example. My ex-wife Erica, one day, a couple years ago, she starts arguing about veganism with a guy named Terry, who's a super strong dude. In fact, he holds the record for squatting in Michigan, about 670 pounds. I never talk about veganism with Terry. He's closed-minded. He doesn't want to hear it at all. So I overhear the argument going on. So of course I got to jump in. Next thing you know, I'm face to face with Terry, and we're going toe to toe, and I'm ready to fucking sock him in his face. But I'm not mad at Terry. I'm mad at Erica. After it ended, I said, "What the fuck are you doing? Do you ever see me talking about veganism to Terry?" She says, "No." So what the fuck did you bring it up for? Do you think there's a reason? He was not going to listen. Now you got me so fired up. I actually had to work out at a different gym for 30 days. I was so pissed off. What I'm saying is avoid people that aren't going to listen to the truth, that don't have an open mind, and find the people that do. Though there are plenty of people at the gym that are interested, because let's face it, a lot of people want to go there to become healthy. So approach them. Tell them about. Now, veganism is not about health, but let them know about the health benefits. Then bring in the exploitation angle. Bring in the ethics after.
By the way, I started from the health reason, and in less than 1 week, my heart opened, and all the excuse and all the animal abuse, I needed the health reason to open my heart. I wasn't able to listen to the cry of the animals up until I made this choice from the health avenue. This could be a great reason to start, and after this, your heart open.
Yeah. I don't care what the angle is that people use to get somebody to pay attention. Just, of course, make sure the ethical angle comes in. Keep in mind my speech, I had a health section, an environmental section. Again, this is about animals and exploitation, but hey, sometimes other angles work. In fact, my father was the only family member that ended up becoming vegan. I didn't convert him, though. He was 411 pounds. His doctor finally said to him, because my dad wanted a knee operation. The doctor said, "I'm not putting you under anesthetic, Ron. You're 411 pounds. This is crazy. You need to lose some weight first." So that's why he went vegan. The doctor said, "You should do what your son tells you to do." My dad lost 189 pounds in 1 year. This is how healthy that it can be. Instead of eating hot dogs and cheese, I'd show up at his house. He was eating green peppers and tomatoes. And I would even say to him, like, "What the fuck? That's what you're eating for dinner? That's like level 27 vegan. I'm not even doing that shit." But after he got that angle, then I approached. Now I said, "Now, Dad, you know about the ethics that I'm talking about." Next thing you know, he's a radical, ethical, vegan person. In fact, I would now introduce him to my friends and invite him out to dinner when we went to the vegan joints. And my friends would talk to my dad and say, "Oh, I know where you get your radicalness from, Gary." I'm like, "What? That's my shit. He's using my lines. You know that's my shit. He gets the radicalness from me." But yeah, if it's the health angle, it's the health angle. I really don't care what makes somebody get it. Just make sure. So my only concern is if it's only health based, sometimes it doesn't stick. Like those are the ones that cheat. Because if it's only health, let's be honest, you can eat healthy for 6 days a week, eat lentils and beans and grains and fruits and vegetables and seeds. And then on day 7, if you want a double cheese pepperoni pizza, I'll be honest, your health risk is probably minimum. Just like if you only smoke 3 cigarettes on the weekend instead of a pack a day, yeah, you've reduced your risk for lung cancer and emphysema that way. But ethically speaking, see, we now still have a violation, even if it's only 1 day a week that you're being unethical. It's like only raping one woman or one child. It's still a crime. I don't care. It might be less worse than somebody that's raped 100 women, but I don't care. Raping a woman is evil. So for the health people, make sure you do grasp that ethical angle so you stay a health-based, plant-based.
After you choose the health reason, it's a lot easier to open your heart. So
I agree. And by the way, after we become plant-based eaters, it's also easier to understand why vivisection is evil, why the circus and the rodeo need to be abolished, why we shouldn't be going to the animal prison that we euphemistically refer to as a zoo. You know, everything else to me falls into place too once you get the eating animals is wrong angle.
a connected question from the gym, question from mom. It's pretty heavy. I will try to condense this question. Okay. Have you ever heard of Dolores Cannon and her theory of backdrop people? Okay, soulless entity Do you ever wonder if maybe that's why some people just can't be convinced to go vegan, even when every argument is laid out in front of them? Like it's simply not part of their programming. So, have you ever heard about Dolores Cannon?
I'm not understanding what you're saying. Heard about the what?
Dolores Cannon, name of a woman that passed out. Dolores Cannon, hypnotherapist.
Oh, I haven't heard of that, but I think I understand what you're asking. So some people just being incapable of understanding veganism?
She said most of the people in the world are backdrop people, like
Oh.
soulless being. Okay, most of them, some of
Most
them
of
you can. Most of the people in the world
most of them are followers is what she's saying. Most people just don't do,
you can say followers.
okay.
Some of them can be reprogrammed, no matter what you say. And this is maybe the people that make you feel so hard and
Right.
your brain explode
Yeah,
over
listen,
the.
some people seem to be unreachable, some people incorrigible. It makes me wonder whether some people even possess a compassion gene, because the longer I live, the more I think maybe some people don't have a compassion gene in their body, and that's why they're not open-minded, and that's why they mock the suffering of animals. So that's very possible, but then there's also an angle if they're just followers, the backdrop people, there might be theory to the tipping point theory, which states that you really don't have to convert 100% of the people. You need a percentage. And then I don't know what the percentage is. People argue. Some people say it's as low as 3.5%. I've heard it as high as 25%. But whatever it is, there is a tipping point theory that claims if you get a certain amount of people to become a certain way, then everyone else ends up following suit, and that's why they're followers. They're just going to go along with the crowd because they can't think for themselves. They can't think openly and freely. They are robots, they are automatons. But if the majority of people or a good percentage of people are saying, nope, we have to stop eating animals and we have to eat plant based, everyone else will go, okay. And once McDonald's becomes McVegan, and once Burger King becomes Soy King, and once all these joints change their menus, people are just going to go there and buy all the plant-based options. So there's some truth to that where certain people are unreachable, but then maybe those certain people are just going to follow the crowd once we get the crowd to go.
I must say that I'm also, as far as I know, you only need to convince the source players. Let's say we live like in some sort of a simulation, and if enough source players get this, the world will be Garden of Eden again.
There could be some major truth to that. And when you bring up simulation, I can't discuss this like I discuss animal rights, but also the longer I live, the more I believe we're living in a simulation, that this world isn't real. There's no way. I mean, there are days I wake up, I'm like, this can't be happening. There's no way we're killing 63 billion innocent animals to eat their flesh. You got to be kidding me. We're really stealing somebody else's babies. And there are people out there making jokes about it. There's no way. And then most days I'll look up and I'll say, who's ever playing? I'm done. I'm done playing. Will you just come and take me away? Put me on the giraffe planet. Drop me off on the bunny rabbit planet already. Put me where the sloths are. I'm done playing. I don't want to play this game anymore. And I said this a lot during my retirement because I was at home sitting around all day long, smoking a joint, depressed, stressed out, going, somebody, this is dumb. I'm not playing anymore. Just take me away. So part of me thinks this whole thing is a simulation. There's no way that this world could be real.
There's a lot of proof that we live in a simulation. This is not the issue of this video, but
Right.
if someone wants to find the truth, he will find. I don't doubt this.
Right.
Gary, how many tattoos do you have, and do they carry any special meaning?
Oh, of course they do. So I have two. My first one I got in 1999. I'd like to show it. I don't know if I can. Oh, that's the wrong one. Let me show this one. So this is me holding a bunny rabbit with a mask on. I got this after I got out of prison, after I freed those mink. In fact, I wanted to do something. I didn't know what. And my attorney in Michigan, Matt Savage, who's a great friend of mine still, he calls me up one day after I got out, a couple weeks later, and he says, Gary, I'm going over my Latin stuff for my law practice, and I came across a phrase that represents you. It's presto et persto. It means I stand in front and I stand firm. And instantly I said, oh my God, me holding a bunny rabbit, and it says ALF and presto et persto right on the side, presto et persto. And that afternoon, he picked me up, took me down to Ann Arbor, Michigan, and we got it tattooed in an hour and a half. This woman, by the way, was such a good tattoo artist. I walked in and I told her what I wanted. And I said, I stand like this, have me standing like this with no shirt on, with a mask on, holding a bunny rabbit. And she sketches it out, goes like that. She goes like that. I still have this drawing too somewhere in the basement. And I said, oh my God, that's it. And she did it in an hour and 45. And she asked me questions too about animal rights. Talk about finding the open-minded people. She was open-minded. She listened. She even brought her friend over. She says, "Come over here, listen to this guy." And as I went on and preached, and then she's putting this tattoo on, she says, "Man, you are a warrior, and you went to jail. Man, you really are a social justice warrior. This is amazing stuff." So I got to preach to her and her friend. And then last month, the great Spanish activist Xavi, and it's spelled Xavi, Xavi. He was in Cologne, Germany with me, helping out Paul Bashir and Anonymous for the Voiceless. And he's a huge fan of mine. In fact, I'm pretty sure I turned him vegan. If not, I definitely made him an activist. That's why he came down. He wanted to hang out with me. And my other tattoo that I've wanted forever, I told you about it already. You asked me how I got started. It was the elephant and the octopus that really opened my eyes. So Chavi puts an elephant over here, and then the trunk is connected to a tentacle of the octopus. I just got this about a month ago, so that completes my tattoo portfolio. I don't have more. I don't know if I'm going to get more. I never planned that far ahead. But those are the tattoos that I have. And if you want to see a better image of these, go to my Instagram account. I did a video. It's somewhere on the main grid. You'll just find it. It'll say a personal story about tattoos, and you can see much better images than I just showed everybody.
Go there. Gary, if you were not vegan activist, what do you think you'd be doing today?
God, nothing. Wasting my life away like everybody else. Working a stupid job. I mean, before this, I was working in a factory that sold candy and other goods to convenience stores. Wasn't doing much, and then I was working at a sports score phone center. So this is for gambling stuff. This is back in the '90s before the internet. So if you wanted to know the score of any game that was going on, you had to wait till the morning, till the newspaper came out, or you would call this number, and there we would give live updates every 5 minutes of the scores. We did have a computer system, so I was the sports score phone announcer for John Dobbs Enterprises. I remember that. So actually, I was doing that, and then before that, I was doing the factory work. Yeah, nothing valuable. Put it that way. Nothing meaningful. The only positive thing I've done for this planet is what I've done for the animals, and I'm thrilled that I was able to help them and put out the speeches I did and all the activism I took part in. I'm so thankful that my stepdad took me to the circus that day. It was not his intent, and he just passed away, by the way, a couple years ago. Myron Cohen. Much love to Myron. God rest his soul. He created me. Doesn't even realize it. And that was a fateful day, destiny, however you want to refer to it. I was supposed to be there because he never invited me before, and he was doing that for close to 20 years. And whatever made him that day say, "Hey, you want to come see the elephants?" I said yes, and I went backstage, and then I put a dent in the world because of it.
There's no coincidence. Gary, looking back, is there any situation you regret or feel you should have handled differently?
I did a video about this on Instagram. I regret the infighting I took part in. I don't think it was valuable. Not that I still don't believe I was right in most situations. I thought it was a waste of time. People are going to act the way they're going to act, do activism the way they're going to do it. So I don't know why I wasted my breath and wasted my time, especially when it became mean. So that's the part that I regret. It's not the tactical differences that I had with people. I stand by my tactical differences. It was the mean way, the vitriolic way that I went about it. I was saying way too harsh things to a lot of big players in this movement that have given a lot for the animals as well, and I do regret that. I should have just explained my tactical differences appropriately, like I'm doing nowadays when I talk about how I don't think human rights should be brought into the animal rights movement. I think it's an impediment. I think it blocks the progress of animal rights. When we talk about humans, guess what? We don't talk about animals. And I'm just taking the playbook from the human rights people, by the way, who don't talk about animals. Why? Because then you can't talk about what gays in Uganda are going through. Then you can't talk about what women around the world are going through in the heavily Muslim countries when they have to stay covered all day long, or they get grabbed up by the morality police and get raped and imprisoned. And if you so all I'm doing is mimicking what human rights people are doing. They don't talk about animals, so they focus on humans, and I think we should do the same. Let's just talk about animals and not talk about humans. So the tactical differences are valid, but it's the way I went about it. Other than that, I mean, I'm sure if I thought about it long enough, there are going to be some other regrets, but that's the main one that pops up. And keep in mind, everything I was doing it on the fly. I was freestyling. I wasn't planning. I think there's way too much planning going on in this movement. People want to have meetings and discussions and debates about the discussions and meetings about the debates and discussions about the debates. Stop having fucking meetings already and go do something and figure it out as you go along or after. That's what I did. And look at the change that I was responsible for because I did something. Nothing ever changes if you don't do something. So what's the point of sitting around and having meetings all the time or reading books? How many people sit around and read books? I lost a friend in Texas because all she did was read books. And one day I called her out and I said, "How many fucking books are you going to read about animal rights? When are you going to tell somebody about what you're reading?" And she got mad. What are you mad at? I still don't know to this day. I don't understand why she's upset with me. All I did was go tell somebody about what you're reading. What's the point of gaining all this knowledge and keeping it to yourself? But that's not a regret. I was kind about it. I didn't want to end the friendship, but the infighting, the mean way of infighting that I took part in, big regret, big time.
Gary, someone asked me, I didn't know the answer. What about animal like oyster? For example, creatures without brain or nervous system. Why not eat them apart from the fact that they are officially classified as animals?
Well, first of all, I learned this over the years too. They actually do have a central nervous system. The mollusks, the clams, the oysters, they are aware. They have complex central nervous systems. People need to research that a little better, just like I needed to before I was told by somebody who was a neurosurgeon and a vegan in Orlando, Florida. So that's not accurate. Now, let's just say, though, let's say that it was accurate, that they didn't have a central nervous system. Well, they are animals. And if you're going to be that close to being vegan, well, what's the point of leaving in oysters and clams or honey? It's like all these people walking around, we call them vegans. Like they would be living a plant based lifestyle, but they still want to eat honey. It's like running a marathon, 26.2 miles. You're going to get to the 26.1 mile marker and go, I don't want to finish. Finish the fucking race. Take the honey out, which is bee vomit, by the way, and just include the clams and the oysters and the other mollusks. There's simple and there's no benefit. What's the benefit of eating these creatures? It's more animal protein you don't need, more cholesterol you don't need. Plus, the oceans are polluted with mercury and other chemicals. Now you're consuming things that you don't need to be consuming. If you're gonna be this close to living vegan, to being fully plant-based, what's the point of leaving one, two, or three things in? Just take those creatures out. And we know clams and oysters certainly aren't classified as plants. They're not plants, they're animals. Include the animals. This is what veganism is about, ending animal exploitation. Oysters and clams are being exploited, abused, and harmed and killed just like the cows, pigs, chickens, turkeys, and fish.
Where does he see the vegan movement in another 10 years? Is he fully optimistic about the movement success, or does he believe we're mainly trying to minimize harm that will always exist?
It depends on which day you ask me. Right now, I feel hopeful for the first time in a long time. Anonymous for the Voiceless helped me do that. My online work, being with Carmen, this has helped me gain some hope and feel like we could accomplish something major, especially in the next 10 years. There are days, though, if I'm getting arguments from people or if I'm on the streets of Seville, I'm in Spain right now, and I'm seeing horses tugging around carriages all day long, 12, 13, 14, 15 hours a day in 100-degree weather with bits in their mouth. And it's like, how could this still be going on? Right, it's right out in the open, and no one's seeing the abuse that these horses are going through, walking on concrete, injuring their feet. There's no water available to these animals. So it kind of depends on which day you ask me. But I mean, when I first started, and keep in mind, I've been 29 years in the trenches, so it's my answer is going to be different than a lot of other people. If you're a new vegan, I had this discussion with somebody in Amsterdam, and I didn't realize I was really being harsh on on there being no hope and there's no way we can achieve anything. And she was saying, "No, oh my God, we can do this and that." Finally, I realized at the end I should ask her. I said, "So, how long you been vegan?" She says, "A year and a half." Oh, okay, okay. Never mind what I said. Keep your hope. I remember the year and a half into it, and the hope that I had at that. Don't let me extinguish the fire that you have. So my answer is going to be different from a lot of people because I've been around too long and I haven't seen enough progress. I've seen some progress, but not enough. So, but remember the cell meat that I talked about earlier on this podcast. If that goes the way I think it's going to go in 10 years, there might not be too many animals left in the meat, dairy, and egg industry. So there could be a lot of hope for billions of animals. Now, I do want to point something out because humans are so selfish and mean and vicious still. Even if it goes that route, we're probably going to end up killing off the cows and the pigs and the chickens and the turkeys. This is how selfish we are. That if we can't find a reason to exploit you, then you don't have a reason to live on this planet with us. But let me say this: extinction is a far better fate than perpetual slavery, perpetual rape, perpetually having your baby stolen, perpetual exploitation. As a mouthpiece for these animals, I consider myself not a spokesperson for the animal rights movement. I'm a spokesperson for cows, pigs, chickens, turkeys, and fish, and other animals. I'm their spokesperson. I will accept that on their behalf. That if this is how the abuse and the torture and the exploitation has to end by making them become extinct, then I will accept that because the abuse has to stop. It just has to stop, and the sooner the better on their behalf.
This answer almost bring tears to my eyes, which remind me a video on your YouTube channel where a small girl in Israel gave you letter.
I remember that. It was such a wonderful moment too.
Have you spoke with her?
I have not, I never really kept in contact with anybody. It wasn't just her. I'd love to see her again. I'd love to hear from her. If she's listening and watching, send me an email. Go to my website. You can find my email. It's therealGaryYourofsky@gmail. What a beautiful young person who understood veganism. She listened to the message and got it. There's a lot of young, great kids out there. And I remember encouraging her. I did, after she read the letter, I leaned over. I said, "You're the future. You're the future generation. Please accomplish something. Do more than I did." And I will encourage all the Gary vegans out there. Please, if you can do more than I ever did, do it. This is the sign of a good teacher. I'm not looking for accolades. I'm not looking for fame and glory. Over the years, some of my haters would try to tell me something like, "Oh, Earthling Ed is a better speaker than you. I like Joey Carbstrong better than you. I like Paul Bashir better than you." Good. All influenced by me, by the way. Like that, you're not insulting me. Those are my disciples. And if my disciples can achieve more than I achieved, I'll be the first one to lift them up on my shoulders and say, hey, you guys did it. I didn't do it, but you guys did it. I might have gotten the ball rolling, but you guys sure finished the job. So, I hope that little girl is still vegan. I'm positive that she is, in fact. I'm not even going to hope. I know because Gary Vegans stay vegan. I lay the ethics on pretty heavy. So Gary Vegan stay vegan. I'm positive she's still vegan. I hope she's outspoken. If not, become outspoken, and maybe she's going to change the world.
Once your heart open, it can be closed. When you hear the cry, I always remember a video that I saw where the cows are crying. The cows are crying, and you understand the devilish foolishness you've been put on the world, and you must stop this.
All the animals, by the way, all the animals cry. They all scream and cry. Just listen, pay attention. And if you don't see or you don't hear, then you're the one that has a problem. You're the one that's blocked. You're the one that's hardened and calloused. These animals are always in fear. Just look into their eyes. Their eyes speak volumes. All of them, from rats to elephants to the cows and the pigs to the fish. Do you know there's a story? I got a story for you. There's a famous photograph of a whale with his tail out of the water. And it's this photograph has been out for literally 30, 40, 50 years. The guy who took the photo, I can't remember his name, but he's a friend of my boy, Paul Shatirkin in California, used to be PETA's audio video guy. And he told me that before he was vegan, he asked a fishing trawler ship if he can go down and hang out near the net where they grab up everything in sight, these huge nets that just take up everything. Well, they agreed to let him go down there and do photographs. He accidentally gets caught in the net, inside the net. And he said he has a story that he told Paul. He said, I've never felt so much pain. These animals were suffocating right next to me, and I felt it. I felt their fear. I felt it all. In fact, I thought I was going to die because I was in the net too, and they didn't realize. He ends up escaping from the net. Unfortunately, those fish did not. They were murdered. But he gets out of the net. He becomes vegan. And then he tells the story about all these fish feeling pain. You can't hear a fish scream, but you can sense it. All you got to do is pay attention. Fear is palpable. I mean, when I was at the slaughterhouse, it was in the air, and it has a horrible smell. You might not be able to smell it in the water, but you can smell fear at a slaughterhouse. It smells of two things: death and fear. Those are the aromas in the air, and it's disgusting. And again, all you gotta do is pay attention for the first time in your life. Open up your eyes, open up your heart, and you can feel and see what these animals are going through. And then you can make an ethical decision and change your life, which is going to change their lives. This is supply and demand. If we're going to demand eat animal flesh and the things that come out of animals, these companies are going to mass produce these animals. But when we stop demanding all these products, sadly, they've been turned into products, then they're going to stop artificially impregnating and raping these female animals and stealing their babies and killing those babies. It's all on us, each individual. So also don't think as an individual you can make a world of difference. Everybody knows the story too about the starfish on the beach. The people are walking down the beach. Somebody starts throwing the starfish back in the water. The other person says, hey, you're not going to make a difference. There's thousands of them. As he's holding the one starfish, the other person says, well, I made a difference to this one, and throws him back into the water. This is what each vegan is doing. You're saving thousands of animals because each person is responsible for eating thousands of land animals and thousands of marine animals throughout their lifetime. You are making a difference. And then when enough people make a difference, all of a sudden there's massive change.
And if enough vegan will be activist, the world will change faster, a lot faster. And this is the message I want to end this conversation with. Be active, say the truth, learn from Gary how to speak, I must say, I didn't speak English. The last time I speak English for more than a minute was at least 10 years ago, so it might be struggle with English, but I fully understand you. I understand English very well. And spread the message, spread the activist message. If you want to say something to wrap this up, message for Israeli maybe, go ahead.
Israel activists become active again. You guys were the best on this planet. Right now, the German activists have taken over as the top activists that I've seen. I was there for 2 months. So Israel, get active again. You guys were leading the way. Get back into it. All the non-vegans out there, it's time to change your life. If you're still having trouble, watch my speech. Go online, look up the best speech ever, the Georgia Tech speech. Make a difference, make a change, and everybody, let's do something for the animal kingdom. This is all about the animals. Do something for something else, for somebody else. Be altruistic, be magnanimous, and the only way to do that is to be vegan. Peace.
Thank you, Gary, very much. There's a lot more questions from the crowd here. It will be endless.
Let's do it again then. You know what? Let's do it again in a couple months or beginning of the year. Honestly, Chen, contact me again and I'll come back online. I'd love to.
I will do my best to practice English and speak more. And
it's very good, actually. I understood just about everything. I understood.
Thank you very much. Have a great day. Have a great life. Thank you, Gary, for everything.
L'chaim.
Before we dive in and set this chat on fire, a word of thanks, a note to inspire. For 3 decades strong at Sasha Farm's gate, Gary's been helping animals change their fate, feeding the hungry, freeing the chain, giving them love where cruelty reigned. And with speeches so sharp, with words that ignite, he's turned countless people to a compassionate light. So buckle up, friends, this is not just a show. By the end of this talk, your activism will grow. From Israel to the world, let's raise up the plan. Here's Gary Yourofsky, the voice, the man.